The final boss. Nothing puts a mark of closure on a video game journey quite like the final boss, the last obstacle before the game finally acknowledges that you have completed the objective of the main scenario progression. There may be other tasks to accomplish between side quests, post-game content, or even DLC that may get released for the game, but the crux of the story is generally meant to end with the final boss and their demise. What with all the drama that goes into this encounter, you have to expect some sort of comparable level of difficulty, right? Perhaps a test of all acquired skills or abilities, battles against learned patterns from foes of past, or at least some sort of test of fortitude that matches the gravity of the final boss. Not always the case, as we shall see in some examples of 15 disappointingly easy final bosses in amazing video games. Do beware of spoilers in our list, and hopefully you may remember these fights as we bring them up. If you encountered one of these bosses and actually thought they were difficult, well, we think this video will still be fun to watch. Dark Beast Ganon, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Not only is Breath of the Wild one of the most popular Switch titles and one of the most widely loved Zelda titles amongst fans, its consensus amongst the gaming public at large is overwhelmingly positive, which makes the final fight against Dark Beast Ganon so unfortunate, for a game that was so awesomely different from previous Zelda games, increasing the sense of scale and adventuring in a way that wasn't really anticipated. There's no protracted struggle here. It's Link, his horse, and the Bow of Light, courtesy of Zelda, against Ganon that is significantly monstrous in form and scale, and with an appreciation for the color pink. Your goal is to ride around to the left and right sides of Dark Beast Ganon, at which point golden Triforce glyphs will appear. These are his weak points. Aim your arrows at the center of those glyphs to damage him. There will be 3 on either side and 1 underneath him. The final hit against Dark Beast Ganon will be a shot to an eye that appears atop his head once he has been incapacitated by the other attacks. Human Reaper, Mass Effect 2. While we wait for the next Mass Effect game, let's reflect on the Human Reaper from Mass Effect 2, pretty widely recognized as astonishingly easy. The Human Reaper should look intimidating, as it's about 1,000,000 times or so bigger than you, but the fight really boils down to one goal: aim for its eyes or the glowing chest core. Alternate between firing at the Human Reaper from behind a safe cover option and taking cover as the boss periodically fires a laser at you, and you are certain to win. The fight itself doesn't take particularly long either, so long as you maintain your offense. HOYT VOLKER, Far Cry 3. This might be a great fight if you love QTEs, but the problem with it is that it is also still just too easy. We nominated the knife fight against HOYT in Far Cry 3 for how straightforward it is. The developers certainly intended for it to be dramatic, as there are periods in between QTE prompts wherein Jason and HOYT exchange words with each other, but these verbal exchanges represent pauses in the QTE sessions. It's almost as if the dialogue between Jason and HOYT interrupts the fight, but for the fact that there aren't many QTE sequences, and within those sequences only a few button presses are required. The Black Hand of Sauron, Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. While the fight has a lot of cinematic build-up to it, the interactive part of it lasts approximately half of a minute. For a figure that was apparently extremely feared within Shadow of Mordor, this is not a final boss fight that is engaging and is only barely interactive. There isn't much to be said about a boss fight where Talion swings and stabs the most elite of the Black Captains of Sauron and promptly ends the fight. Destroyer, Borderlands. The Destroyer certainly looks menacing, and it's more of an involved fight compared to the other battles listed so far, but the difficulty of the fight is tied to the strength of your weapons. Fighting the Destroyer is just an obnoxious ordeal. The weak points are clearly marked on its tentacles, and it's easiest to simply fire at the Destroyer from a distance. As the Destroyer approaches near death, it gains a new attack, but it doesn't necessitate any change in strategy. Aim for the tentacles and aim for the weak points in the center. Colonel Autumn, Fallout 3. Colonel Autumn is meant to be a fearsome character, the leader of the military forces of the Enclave in the game, one of the most prominent positions possible amongst your enemies. He even survives a burst of radiation during the game, albeit with some help. However, in your encounter with him, nothing about his reputation is reflected in the fight. Autumn is flanked by some lackeys, but you can easily dispose of him right at the beginning of the fight, and what remains are pedestrian tussles with his flunkies. Joker, Batman Arkham Asylum. This is a more involved fight than some of the others listed here, but the Titan Joker, in a grotesque form that benefits Joker's deranged psyche, is not much of a difficult obstacle. After evading him at the start of the fight, your last bout with the deranged clown follows a basic structure. Defeat a wave of not particularly difficult enemies, pull the Joker down with the Ultra Bat Claw when his back is to you, then attack. After the third Ultra Backclaw grapple, the Joker's show is over. Dead Space, the Hive Mind. In a game where you have been continuously played like a damn fiddle by those scary beings and fought against daunting monstrosities, it's almost hilarious to see the game's final boss be as easy as the Hive Mind. It's literally a mixture of cutscenes and taking some really easy shots at the boss. Within a matter of minutes, everything will be done and dusted, a truly disappointing boss which offers no challenge to the player whatsoever. 2 Sentinels, Mirror's Edge, Catalyst. Ideally, you as the player position yourself in such a way that both Sentinels are rarely attacking you simultaneously. Focus much of your offense on whittling down the health of one Sentinel rather than trying to divide your attacks equally among both. They don't spend a lot of time being stunned whenever you hit them, so give yourself fewer opportunities to take damage by taking out one Sentinel and then the other. Really, the Sentinels have about as much personality as they are difficult to defeat. Zoran Lazarevich, Uncharted 2. Rather than constantly trying to damage him directly with your own weapons throughout the fight, first make sure that you are mobile while fighting him so that Zoran cannot easily land hits on you. What you'll want to do is aim at the blue resin deposits that are scattered around the area. Even after they are destroyed, they will respawn after a period of time, so don't worry about having to budget your damage opportunities. Your primary objective should be to find chances to shoot at the blue resin pockets around the boss arena, such that the explosion will harm Zoran. With persistence, he will be taken down. There are reportedly other exploitable methods to this fight, including a location near the bottom of the arena, wherein you can loop QTE sequences against him that will damage him, or a ledge that Nathan Drake can hang from while he waits for resin deposits to respawn to shoot at from a distance. Paul Serene, Quantum Break. From the makers of the Max Payne series and Alan Wake comes to you Quantum Break and its unorthodox final fight. An important note about fighting against Paul is that you'll most likely be fine as long as you never stop moving while disposing of waves of enemies littering the arena. Defeating Paul is in large part about defeating enemies on the map, and then outlasting his onslaught of energy blasts until he makes himself vulnerable. Mother Brain, Super Metroid. A helpful strategy. During the first phase, this boss will simply shoot while it's completely immobile in a glass container. You simply need to break the glass by shooting at it. Furthermore, you can freeze the turrets as well. The second phase involves you dodging around and taking shots at the boss in a diagonal manner. In no time, the Super Metroid will bite the dust. The Moon Presence, Bloodborne. And with this entry, we return to the type of boss fight that is easily exploitable and representing a game that is otherwise not so easy to complete. Bloodborne's Moon Presence certainly has an intimidating and grotesque appearance, but can be felled by a rather basic strategy of both letting it attack and moving to its back so as to wail on her. Judiciously dodge towards its claw-swiping attacks, moving towards the boss so that you end up behind her, in order to give yourself an opportunity to deal damage. When enough of her health is whittled down and she starts to prepare a red-orange light from her head, maintain distance. With persistence, this secret Bloodborne boss will be easily disposed of. Obergruppenführer, Frau IRENE ENGEL, Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. This is something of a unique entry as it's not actually a boss fight so much as an assassination mission. Just walk up to her in the middle of her public relations stunt and attack. You'll have your last words once she is slain, and that closes this boss fight. Not that an evil Nazi commander needs a ceremonious final bout. It is a noticeably gruesome death, though perhaps it represents a sort of payback considering the events that transpired in the game. Lambent BRUMAK, Gears of War 2. This isn't one of the more engaging final boss fights in our list. Your final showdown in the game involves you aiming the Hammer of Dawn at the towering Lambent BRUMAK from your helicopter as it circles around the boss. Aim enough and the battle is over. Fans would have been more rewarded with a fight that is more interactive and caps off the journey of Gears of War 2 rather than reducing it to a simple button press. It's one thing to encounter easy final bosses, but for a great journey to end with easy boss fights derails any sort of tension in the fight, lowering the payoff of finally completing the journey. While there are instances where there is narrative purpose to a simplified boss fight, it's hard to make an argument in support of this type of storytelling if it doesn't effectively engage the player. We here at GamingBolt do our best to advocate for better experiences for our audience, and on that note, we hope you enjoyed this video, and be sure to reply with any boss fights that you found simple. Also, if you thought any of these boss fights listed were difficult, no harm in commenting about that too. Thanks for watching. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.